I'm Eric Nason with Newsshooter.com, and I have a really special guest. Who do I have here with me today?
Hey, I'm Claudio Miranda. Yeah.
Claudio, I just saw the dig.
Oh, good.
Fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about operating this camera, this brand new Venice camera.
Right. It's part of a test, so I like testing. So I don't like doing tests in a normal way. So I like shooting little features. So I'm not really the bug on leaf or any of that kind of stuff. So I don't really do fruit or charts or anything. So
I hate charts too. I really do. I hate it.
I hate charts. I hate dollar bills. I hate all that stuff. So and I don't really watch anyone else's tests. So I just do my own tests. So this is kind of a little bit way of doing my own tests with the camera.
It looks really great. It has a really nice look to it. You were talking about you really enjoyed how the color of the camera is. Talk to me about the actual color of the new Venice camera.
Yeah, no, the color just seems a little bit more well-rounded in a way. It just seems less electronic. It seems a little more soulful. It seems a little bit more, I don't know, it just feels like it has a little bit of a softer feel to it as far as color dynamics. I feel like it's probably due to the wider color gamut. It doesn't feel like it's electronically or pushing hard in any direction. Really easy to grade. I'm not trying to back off magenta and skin tones and the shadows or any kind of strange stuff that I normally deal with some cameras.
The highlights looked really great. I mean, you were playing with that. This is a camera test. How did you push those, and how do you like the way they rolled off?
For all I was testing the filter wheels that's in it too, which is kind of a new thing. It has the 8 stops of ND kind of built into the camera. So a lot of it was me pointing at the sun, seeing how that would bounce off and how that would react as well, how that would look. I had the sun in shot, and I had actors in front. You could still see their face. There was a dynamic range in the sun. There's dynamic range in the shadows. I felt it helped that really pretty well. And we were out in the desert, 110. Yeah. So we had heat, and the camera proved to be reliable in that heat.
And you touched on dynamic range. The camera's about 15 plus stops. What do you think?
I guess. I mean, I haven't really, done the old chart on it, you know what I mean? But it feels like it's more than previously I've used before. So it feels, and I like the way it rolls off a lot better than previous. It's very smooth in the way it goes to it's 11, in a way,
Now, you also mentioned about the neutral density filter. This is a new thing. I mean, this is loaded with ND. Talk to me a little about that and your involvement with Sony to get this thing going, because it's not a typical thing. It's a big ask.
I spoke with Sony, directly about just about having. Wouldn't it be great to have all the NDs in? I always think it's a big. The F65. It went from 0 to ND9 was kind of the first step. And I just think that's a real drag. I just think, why can't we just have them all? Can you engineer a great way to put them all in without any sort of weird color shifts? Because that's an issue too. When it starts getting into 2.4, sometimes the colors feel muted, or there's some weird tinge towards green, or there's some IR pollution that's screwing things up. And for me, I pushed it all the way to the 2.4, which is the high end, and didn't notice any sort of odd color shift at all in the camera. And for me, it was 2.4 was the same as 9. And I really appreciated that, especially when the sun's going down. You're trying to maintain a scene, within the same color feel, and you don't want any sort of big color shifts as the sun's going down. Especially in this movie we're making, we used all the light from sun up to sundown.
And you guys were in the desert. I mean, talk about one of the best places to test internal NDs, because using them externally in that Mac box, and you're constantly switching them. That's like a 2-man process, 3-person process.
But also in a way, not just beyond the technical of putting them back in and out and just dealing with that nonsense. It's nice to be able to kind of, in a 2-shot, craft the depth of field you want. Be able to say, rather than big 2-stop, increments or big 3-stop, you can just kind of go in the camera and you can just turn the wheel. 1 stop, 2 stops, and you said, I want the background a little bit blurry, or I'm not holding the 2-shot, just open up a little bit. So it's very nice to be looking at the image on a monitor or through the viewfinder and be able to kind of crank out the depth of field you like. And that's really huge. That's a big thing for me, because be able to be. And it's the ND's going quick. It's a snap, 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 snap. So I'm just live viewing as I go click, 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 and I say, oh, that depth of field's great. Oh, this depth holds the 2-shot perfectly.
It's nothing like making a decision, framing it up, getting what you want in literally seconds to low minutes, as opposed to a half an hour.
Yeah, and an AC putting a filter in and out. Yeah, that's totally doable.
Sure.
But you're not judging it as quickly, between like A, B, A, B. I can't go in, out, like, and then go more, and then 2, and then like, that's a freaking octopus, So it's just nice to be able to craft it that way, which I really as an artist, be able to, because the depth of field is also one of your creative inputs.
Shooting anamorphic is a big deal, right? This is a brand new camera that's capable of doing something that other Sony cameras haven't. Right. Let's talk a little about your experience shooting anamorphic and the resolution and all that fun stuff.
I mean, that was kind of what I went to Sony with. I showed them all these anamorphic movies, that are kind of known as film kind of greats. So I showed them a couple samples. I said, here's what anamorphic is, and here's why filmmakers are really attracted to this, because they love the imperfections. Now, Sony likes perfection. So anamorphic is not really an imperfection, but I said, but that's a creative tool to be imperfect, to be soft edges, to have bellowing edges. That's creative freedom to do that. It's not always about straight, perfect vertical lines and perfect sharpness edge to edge. Right. That's something we're not always interested in. We want a little bit of soul in the camera. So how can we do this? And they said, oh well, of course you could use anamorphic with the 16:9. But then I said, well, I'm not really getting the characteristics truly of the lens. I'm zooming into it, and that's like, so the juicy bits on a lot of these lenses are on the outside. So now I'm cropping that outside. It'd be great to truly get the full juices of these lenses and be able to use the full extent without cropping in or windowing in for any of this stuff. So that was kind of my big push for Sony. And on the dig, we actually went one step further. We actually did our project at 266, which is truly full anamorphic, using the true 4:3, not the 5x2. Or 6x5. That's
so many frames.
So many numbers, whatever the whole thing is. Yeah.
How do you feel about shooting full frame, high resolution now? In the future, I guess the next iteration or the firmware is going to be a full frame.
I do think it opens up to more lenses you may want to choose. Like, you may be able to use some vintage 65mm lenses. I've looked at a Hawk 65mm that was 1/3 anamorphic. That was pretty amazing, full sensor. So I'm excited to do more tests with that. I mean, currently we just use the 4:3 inside. We didn't use the full sensor, but I'm very excited about testing that, and I'm sure I will.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Sensitivity-wise, I watched it in this antiquated theater, right? Our technology in the field now, we're using cameras that are way better than some of the projection that we have now. But I didn't see, any really noise issues or just ugly noise, I guess you could say. What do you feel? How do you feel about the sensitivity and the type of noise that the camera does have?
I do feel the sensitivity is fine. I mean, we're on an early stage right now, so there's a lot of things being worked out. So I do feel like there's a little bit of differences going to be coming out in the future. So I got to see what those are. I mean, we had the camera was hand built, and it was two weeks after the sensor got printed. Crazy. So I mean, that's totally crazy in anyone's language. So I'd really like to see. We were totally unbelievably happy with what we had. We had great dynamic range, we had great sensitivity. We were shooting at night with heavily ND windows with a city in the background, and for us that was fine.
And you weren't using a whole lot of lights. You were trying to take advantage of the natural light and maybe just like filling in?
Yeah, filling in a little bit. I mean, I didn't want to use like bright fluorescence. I didn't want to feel like it was a horribly lit fluorescent room. So I did replace all those lights with some things that kind of dimmed down to taste to make the outside world feel as bright as possible. So that's kind of what I did for those pieces.
So what's your takeaway of the new VENICE camera? What was your favorite parts of the camera that really stood out to you that makes you maybe want to just use it again on the next project?
The two things I liked. I mean, I love the skin tone rendition. I loved how it doesn't go red as it goes darker in the shadows. That's nothing I have to combat. I like the skin tone just felt like it was no battle. It just starts off great. I mean, I'm totally willing to push things in another direction, but at least give me, something reasonably neutral to begin with, without fighting it. Then I'll go wherever I want to go. So I love that. I love the highlights, how it rolls off into the highlights with the sun in the background and people still in the shot. I love that it's not polluted. I love the way the NDs are in the camera. For me, that's massive. I love that they don't shift the color in any way. A lot of times we get filters I'm getting from assistants, and they put them in, and I go like, what the hell happened? Like, you put, a 2.1 in, and it's green. I say, well, shit, that's terrible. And of course we tested at prep, but always when I go beyond 1.8, usually the filter's terrible. And this camera holds up pretty good at the 2.1, the 2.4, and it's all clean, which is kind of a first for me in filter language. So I'm scared to go above 1.8 in color rendition.
Right. And the idea that they're going away from global shutter is interesting. They're getting these refresh rates that are faster, so you get a little bit more performance from the shutter or from the sensor now.
Correct. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I still love the, I don't know how I feel about that. I just don't want wobbly shutter. I never liked that in any camera. I never had a camera that did that, So they're going through different performance things. The F65 had a mechanical shutter, which was great for me,
Yeah. Well, everything's getting better electronically. We can get more performance out of these things. They're making them run them. The refresh rates are faster. Everything. So, yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me and talking to me about the dig and about the new camera. I really appreciate it. Have a great night.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.